Hi, my name is Amanda Mungle and I'm the founder of It's Your Time. I'm here today to introduce you to my good friend Katherine Lazaruk, who I have had the honor of knowing for 10, 15 years or more. And she's come today to share her story with us, her business journey, and we explore all kinds of great things in the conversation, which I know because we just had the conversation. Katherine is a teacher, a singer. She started her business as an image consultant and is now an executive coach and a professional image consultant, and is taking the world by storm, helping women find their authentic selves and their power, and more than women, everybody find their authentic selves and find their true power. So without further ado, watch this awesome interview. Welcome, Katherine. Thank you so much for coming today.
It is my pleasure.
And so we're just gonna have a chat today around your journey going from building your business and going to the next level, and what that looked like. So I'd like to start by asking you, can you tell me a little bit about your business?
So my business, Lazaruk Consulting, is executive presence coaching and executive coaching. So I help leaders and their teams walk the walk, talk the talk, and look the part.
Look the part.
Yeah. That's kind of a unique niche because there's lots of executive coaches around. There's not very many image consultants, actually, as it happens. I'm only one of two that are internationally designated in all of Western Canada. So there's there's lots of stylists around, but not very many certified consultants. So it combines those two things quite nicely. So it's a unique niche.
Awesome. So I'm curious, I know that we've known each other for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I think the first time I bumped into you when you had sort of started this business, you were doing primarily image consulting.
Yeah, that's where I got started.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the journey from there to where you are now, because it's quite different what you're doing now from or it's bigger.
It's more layered, I would say.
Yeah,
kind of where I'm at. But when I started in the business, first of all, it was a total flash of inspiration. Like I had no idea. If you told me, 15 years ago I'd be doing this, I would have laughed my ass off. Like, what? Not gonna happen. But when I started, I struggled with the idea that sort of the perception that image consulting is about fashion or style or just the look of somebody, that it's superficial. Because for me, I discovered fairly quickly and always kind of took this approach that it is surface, but it is not superficial. Because the surface needs to reflect all of the internal richness that a person contains. So in the beginning, I was very much into, when I did my certifications, it was really about matching someone's container to their insides, their personality, their lifestyle, what they were doing. So it was much more of a strategic application of image consulting skills in order to help clients achieve their goals than it was about shopping. I hate shopping, honestly. And most of my clients hate it too.
The image consultant who hates shopping.
I know. Yeah, it makes me a little bit unique in my field, and having discussions with actually we're having our professional conference in Chicago shortly.
Yeah.
And having those discussions, my other colleagues love it, and I cannot even.
It makes you perfect for like online shopping maybe or something.
Yeah, even then it's really, again, it's always to what end? How can I do this as efficiently and quickly as possible? And how can I teach my clients to do that so that they're getting what they need to do in a shorter amount of time?
I would imagine if you're working with professionals and executives and very busy people, that is actually a really good skill set, because they probably don't want to spend all day in a mall or wherever it is that you take them shopping. Like
nobody has time for that.
Yeah.
It's crazy to do that. So in any case, so I started with that, and at the beginning my philosophy was very much be your true self, present your true self to the world. Which is great, except in the beginning I was very, because I was interested in that and I wanted to show people that I was creative or fun or different from the normal image consultant, I was really working hard to present a more creative image. And it was interesting because even in my training, I went through sort of a personal transformation journey, because prior to my training I was really dressing my personality. So I had like really big like red spiky hair, and I had like zebra print coats, and everything was really out there. And when you combine a big personality with big clothing, it puts people off. It's just too much, right, all at once. So when I did my training, I went through my own transformational journey, and then it took me a little while to kind of find my way back to what style was going to suit me personally. So I was a little bit disjointed when I started. If I look back at pictures now, I'm thinking, oh my God, can't believe I got any business. Seriously. I mean, I got heckled at my first speaking engagement that I ever did, and I was giving my pitch at the end, and this woman at the back of the auditorium piped up, and she's like, why would I take advice from her? Look at what she's wearing.
Oh dear.
And I literally would say to people, I don't want you to look like me. I want you to look like you.
Yeah.
And I'm really good at that. And people have expectations about people in my field. And it wasn't until, so I started my practice 2006, 2007, around the corners of a day job that I was doing at the time in corporate training, and then did my certification, and then was practicing full time, sort of 2009 was kind of when I started practicing full time. And so it was interesting because it just required so much explanation when I was doing something so unique. And it wasn't until, I think it was 2013, that I committed to working with a business consultant who basically, I mean, the first time we met, there I am in his boardroom, and I sit down and I'm super excited, and I've and I've got my chunky, funky, like crazy Danish designers, the symmetry, and I got my bag, and I got my Hilroy, 5 subject spiral notebook, and my pink gel pen, and I'm super excited, and I was trying to grow my hair long, disaster, and I sit down and I have my notebook, I'm really excited. He literally walks into the room, looks at my notebook, leaves, says nothing, comes back with one of those moleskin hardcover with the ribbon, right? Puts it very deliberately beside my Hilroy spiral notebook and says, you're going to take all your notes from that and put it into this, and I never want to see that on my table again. And I said, but my clients love it. I'm so down to earth. I'm so practical. It's such a great kind of book to write in, and it's fantastic. And he said, what kind of consultant are you again?
So a bit of a light bulb moment?
Kind of. It was that point of realizing that we don't live in a vacuum. And people have expectations of anybody in any industry. The more you can minimize people's cognitive dissonance when they meet you, the easier it is. So that started maybe a 6-year journey to sort of where I am now, or kind of where I got to last year, where I had been exploring that creative and trying to figure out what it meant to look like a woman. And I hang around with a lot of glamazons. Like, they're beautiful, tall, long hair, nails, the whole lots of makeup. Like, they're all really amazing women, and they're super uber feminine. And so I was even challenged by, well, what does it mean to be feminine, and how's that going to work for me? And because long hair doesn't work.
Right.
So how do I have short hair that works for me, that actually makes me still feel sexy, powerful, feminine, womanly, and how do I make my outsides match that power, so it's not just sloppy? Because Vancouver's super casual. It's very easy to just be really laid back, right?
I mean, unicorn shirt.
It's very casual. I love your unicorn shirt. It's a very casual place, and so I ended up getting so comfortable that I just kind of lost who I was. And it was another friend of mine who basically was doing an event at my studio and came in and was like, what is going on there? And I said, it's awesome. Fantastic, it's fabulous, it's like very, very funky. And she goes, no, it's just sloppy now, honey. And so I had to call my friend Michelle, who's in Ottawa, and she's a consultant there, and I said, I need help. I'm stuck.
Interesting. So you turned to somebody in a similar field.
In my field. She's an image consultant in Ottawa, so she works with politicians and people out there, and she's a very different consultant in the sense that she's very precise, very dramatic, very, like, all of her stuff is custom made. If you ever have lunch with her, it's a joy to watch her order. It's very Harry Met Sally specific.
Okay.
She's extremely precise. And so she came to Vancouver. She was out here for a conference. Her husband had a conference, and so she came out, and she said to me, there's an element of elegant about you in terms of an archetype. And I just laughed. I was like, whatever. Because to me, elegant is very polite and quiet and don't rock the boat. And didn't resonate. And she said, no. She goes, you really have a high level of attention to detail. You like things to be finished. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And she said, look around your office, right? You have exactly the right espresso cup, and you have the right table, and you have the right, like, it's very elegant. And so I really had to come to terms with the idea that I really like beautiful things. And I do like that level of attention to detail. And I hadn't really been honoring that part of myself.
Yeah.
And it was a bit scary to say, okay, this is it's a little bit edgier, it's a bit stronger as a style, and I actually really like it. And it's okay for me to do that?
Well, I can't even picture you any other way now.
I can show you pictures. They're bad.
Oh, I can remember. I can remember, but I can't picture you any other way now. So you found your style. You found your
I found my own
yourself.
sort of niche, and it's way more comfortable. So now I feel super comfortable, and if I tell people what I do, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas before,
There was a disconnect.
Yeah, there was a disconnect for people, even though it was much more about inner expression, and people who knew me, they were fine with that, but it's way easier to get hired now. So that's really what I help leaders do, is help them be seen as strong leaders in whatever that means for them and whatever industry they're in.
So would you say that it's not even, like, as you sort of grew your business and came to sort of find your own self more in that process, would you say that there was a space or an area where you found pushback from either maybe your target market shifted at some point and you had to make that realization and go to a different market, or maybe a pushback from yourself in making that change? Like, I don't imagine you had your meeting with your friend and then just suddenly showed up looking different the next day, but there would definitely, like, I would imagine that your target market now is very different than it was, let's say, 10 years ago, right?
Yes.
So as you made that transition, was there like, was it sort of like a moment where you're like, I need to be looking at different people or a different market, or did it just kind of organically happen that you started that shift to who your client might be, or like as you were sort of making your changes within yourself, that change also happened with your target client and that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was actually my clients who started to change, and that was what sort of at the same time.
It all sort of...
It was very organic, and really what came to the new branding and how I layered on the executive coaching and that chunk of it, I knew that I wanted to do more corporate work because I really enjoy the environment, and I really like working at the levels, director level and higher. I enjoy that a lot, and I really enjoy working with high potential people as well in companies. But really what happened is, initially when I started, I was working with people from all different levels, and as those people got promoted, got noticed, went higher up in their companies, then they started inviting me to come and work with their teams. You know, I really love what you did for me. I want you to come and work with my executive team and some high potential people in our company, but we can't hire an image consultant to do that.
Right.
Because the optics on image consulting are not always very good, in the sense that people tend to have a perception it's fashion, it's style, it's nice to have, not need to have, it's frivolous, you're not broken, so what do you need fixing? Like, you know, there's a whole bunch of baggage associated with that. People think, oh, you're going to help me lie about who I am, which is not anything I would ever do. That kind of thing. So really my clients started saying, you need to shift, because we want you to come and do this, and we want to pitch you, but we're having a hard time. We have to explain it too much. So it was really eerily sort of parallel to the beginning of my work. Yeah. They started having trouble talking about it because it required too much explanation. And
it's
I was
almost
already
like the wrong label for...
Yeah, exactly. And they said, well, you're not, because they would even say to their friends that they wanted to refer, well, she's not really an image consultant. She's more like a personal development coach, or she's really into personal growth, or she'll really help you dig down to figure out who you are and how you're going to show up more authentically, which, I mean, authentically is used a lot now, but that's what they were saying. Even one of my clients, she said, it's funny, she said, really, your tagline should be teaching women to own their shit since 2006.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it became really apparent for me that it's really about the political, I have a political motivation. I'm really tired of waiting for gender parity. So anything I can do to get women and champions of women into senior leadership sooner, that's what I'm going to do. So really that came, so now there's a bigger why underneath it.
That's a really big why.
It's a really big why. And it's also for people of color, and trying to broaden that conversation on diversity, which again, diversity is such a buzzword. It's like, oh, we have diversity of thought. I'm like, well, it's pretty white all around here. So some of the tables that I'm at are definitely very, very white, very economically privileged, very a certain age demographic. So I question when people say, oh, we're interested in diversity. I'm like, really? How interested are you? So I've been doing some learning myself, because this is just very new to me as well. It's only been about 4 years.
I've been seeing your posts, the different things you've been going to, and events and
that I've started to. And I think the interesting thing is I sometimes get challenged on still the image piece, and I think those things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, like showing up as who you are just helps people.
You know, in my business, we're like, we're definitely far more expensive than outsourcing overseas or hiring some lady in her living room, right? We're not the cheapest game in town.
Yeah.
And so, but we also run a fairly casual ship as far as like how people have to dress for the office and that sort of thing. But one of the things I do try and talk to my staff about is like people are buying a certain level of service and that looks a certain way in their minds.
Yes.
And so if you're going on site with a client, like you need to look a certain way, right? Yeah. And I'm not an image consultant, but just like as a purchaser, I know that if I was purchasing a service, something billed as being executive or high level support or what have you, and somebody showed up in sweatpants, that I would question the value of that service, right? And so, and I'm very aware with myself that, on one hand, I tend to be fairly casual, but on the other hand, if I want to be projecting sort of just what we can offer, because we can offer way more than just typing and data entry, right? Then maybe it's time to step up my game as well, right? Which I've talked to you about in the past, like and not be quite so like maybe all we do is typing.
Right. I think our businesses are similar in that respect because, again, I'm not the cheapest game in town either. And I offer more than that. Yeah. But again, it's that level of expectation. And there's so much data behind that now. So many studies, so much science behind that idea. There's even very specific data around appropriately dressed sales agents elicit stronger purchasing intentions. Yeah. So if someone looks good, they sell more.
Probably going to buy from them, or more likely to buy from them.
You're more likely to. So it's a purchasing intention around it, or it's a leadership intention. And some of my work is breaking down what we consider to be leadership qualities, because virtually everything that we know about what we think leaderly behavior is comes from a masculine paradigm. So
it's interesting. It's like in the election with in the president election in 2016, just a lot of the language that was used, right?
Too emotional, too whatever, right?
Yeah, too shrill.
Right, and what we think women have been tone policed for years and have had to fit into the dominant group, which is always what happens, right? The non-dominant group needs to adapt to the dominant group in order to be accepted or to move forward. And after a while, as we make more advances, particularly with women now, and men are changing too, but particularly with women, it's like, I don't want to show up like a man because it doesn't work. Well, and you lose so much if the genders are trying to imitate each other. It's ridiculous.
Totally. One of my guilty indulgences is I read a gossip blog called Lainey Gossip.
I've heard of this blog.
Yes. And Lainey talks all the time about women feeling the need to be nice and be likable.
Yep.
And I know as a business owner and as a woman business owner that is definitely a challenge I face, being a boss, right? Sometimes dealing with maybe pushy clients or really successful male clients where I'll go into pleaser mode, right? As opposed to, well, no, this is what we can do mode. Right. And sometimes it can be, and I'm sure everyone, male or female, can have struggles being a boss, but I find that as a woman, we've been raised to be pleasers and be nice and be friendly. And so that's always my go-to. And so it can make it really challenging for me to be boss lady, which I need to be. I mean, I got 10 people. I need to be boss lady, right?
It's learning to show your teeth.
Yeah, right. And it doesn't mean I have to be like mean lady, but it's it's a skill set as a personality that I think a lot of women have not been taught, or we've been taught to do the opposite of.
Right. Well, culturally, right? We all swim in the same cultural stew, and half the time we don't even know or understand how deeply those messages are ingrained in our psyche and in our behavior. So even the somebody said the other day, I've been perceived as a bitch. I'm doing a lot of swearing. I hope you can.
That's totally cool. I'm gonna look at the camera.
I know.
That's okay to say.
Well, it was interesting because it's this perception, and it's like all you have to do is hang up on somebody to be called that. Well, and the acronym that I like for that is being in total control of herself. Yeah. Right. You can call me that if you want, but that's just a way to minimize my authority. So bugger off.
Yeah. Totally.
And I'm totally fine with that. It's the, and I'm not going to be deliberately antagonistic. And I'm also here to push the envelope and challenge some of those stereotypes and really encourage men to rise up and women to rise up too, and to support each other and be in that. So particularly with women, that being nice thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's nice to be nice, but it's also nice to actually
nice to
own
do other
yourself
things too. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's such a cultural puzzle that I'm enjoying unraveling and
Awesome.
breaking down the boundaries. And frankly, I mean, some of my favorite people to work with are hard right alpha males.
Nice.
And have discussions with them
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, I have lots of sort of C-suite high level men who come in, and they very much come in and they're like, oh, why can't just people come to work and do the job I pay them to do and go home?
Yeah.
And I said, because that's not how it works. People want to bring their whole selves to work, and you get better work out of them if they do, and they want you to bring your whole self to work. So they don't need to change, you need to change.
Yeah.
So decide how you're going to be manly and leaderly and wholehearted at the same time. And there are some great examples of that in our society now. And there are some terrible examples of that. So it's an interesting struggle for men and women, I think, to redefine what the roles look like.
Well, I don't think it's a comfortable place for men to live in either. I think
No,
just as
God,
much as
no.
we've been taught to be nice, men have been taught that's how they're like that sort of
Strong, stoic, Clint Eastwood, you know.
I think that naturally there's like not a lot of men that are innately like that. That's the role they've
Humans
been
are not
taught,
like
right?
that.
Exactly.
Humans have a
so
wide
it's kind of everybody's got a raw
range.
deal on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. I really think so.
So-
Like, we're not allowed to have a full spectrum of emotional expression. People don't know how to handle emotion. They just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing it to be there and allowing, that's part of being a human being, is to have that range of expression. And I think the more we promote that, the better.
Work with Katherine and learn to be a human being, a fully realized human being.
Sure, I'll take it.
Okay, so if you, do you have a specific focus word or theme for this year?
Yes, it's faith, not fear.
Love it. I love that. And
Yeah.
in fact, I think you actually recommended a book when we were talking to Susan
Oh
about
yeah, the fear cure.
the fear
Fear cure.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got some good
Awesome.
exercises in it. And some of the things I did, I always think, you're reading something, take what you like, leave the rest. It has some good exercises in it about identifying fear. And the epiphany I had around it was almost every fear that I personally have, luckily, is false. There's no bears chasing me.
Yes.
Thankfully, there's no bombs falling in my house or in my city. There's no risk of homelessness because I have too many friends for that. There's no real risk to me. And I recognize that's an extreme privilege, and I recognize that that's a great thing to have. But to engage in fearful behavior or have an extreme fear response as if a bear was chasing me when there's no fear to be had is deeply ungrateful to the universe.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like a slap in the face. And so I just decided that I wasn't going to do that anymore.
I've been reading this book called Factfully, and I'm like super horrible at remembering names, so I don't remember the author. But anyways, the whole premise, I think he's just a statistician.
I know. Statistician.
And the whole premise...
He's a data guy.
He's a data guy,
Perfect.
exactly. And so the premise of the book is that as human beings, like on the evolutionary path that we're on, we're not very far from a world where we did need to worry about a bear chasing us.
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
And so that ability to be focused on fear is so ingrained in us that, when we talk about the media giving negative messaging, sure, but they're doing it because they know that we're going to respond to it because we're so pre-programmed for it, right?
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of like, yes, it happens, but also that even if it didn't happen, that is what we would cue in on. So if you had like a newspaper with 90 good stories and 10 bad, we would probably still cue in on the 10 bad, right?
Right.
And
until
yeah, for sure. Like you can make a choice not to, 100%. And I think that's the point of the book. And what he has done is he's actually done a survey with a bunch of questions, right? Like how many around the world, how many girls finish elementary education, right? 90%, 50%, 20%. And he's got, how many people are vaccinated, all this, right?
Right.
And he's given that survey to people in the UN. He's given it to all kinds of to people like in lower socioeconomic groups, like to everywhere around the world. He's done this survey. And the very top score, even to like people making policies in the United Nations, the very top score is 14%, I think he said.
14% of?
Of getting the answers correct.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah, that people don't know. They have a perception that's not correct.
That a group of chimpanzees would score higher. is what he keeps saying in the book. And and it's just so even people making policy don't actually know the answers.
They don't have the data.
They don't have the data. And even when they have the data, they still pivot towards the bad news.
Right.
And he's saying it's not that there's not things that are wrong. It's just that, in fact, things are exponentially better and are improving.
Yes.
And we don't recognize it, right? Because we keep pivoting to the negative. And I think that if you take that to a personal level, it's just like, how can I be intentional in my personal life as well as just my news reading life?
Right.
Right.
Right. What do I want to feed myself or put out in the world? Or
Totally.
And it's definitely...
I totally rambled, I'm sorry, but I find it so interesting.
I didn't find that rambly.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, anyways, I think we can be very intentional about what we choose to bring into ourselves.
Right, and I think that that's also a privilege.
100%.
You know, we have the luxury of sitting around and contemplating our navel. Yeah, to some degree.
Well, he even says that in his book. If you're reading this book, then you are privileged, and you have the ability to sit here and read this book.
Absolutely.
Right?
You have time to read it. You have time to think about how you want to craft your life, and there are plenty of people in the world that don't have that ability.
Absolutely.
So I feel that it's a responsibility then to exercise that privilege appropriately without entering into white savior mode or anything like that. Right?
Yes, that would be good.
Trying not to, because we're going to mess it up. Yeah. That's the thing. If you're privileged and you want to change something, you're going to mess it up. Yeah. You're going to mess it up. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make people mad. But that doesn't mean you should stop trying. Yeah. And you're probably going to cause harm. Try not to. Minimize it as much as you can. But yeah, it's interesting, that whole discussion around those things.
That's right. So that's the end of my questions. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add?
In terms of journey or, I mean, it's interesting, like, when I think about, if people are watching this, they might be curious about business journeys or how to do things. And the thing that I think about most when I think about that is, don't be fooled by the top 40 under 40.
Oh, interesting.
Like, it's super great for people to be early achievers, but we glorify that a lot.
We do.
And I'm way more interested, if they ever start a top 100 under 100, that's a
list
I want to see. Right? Because it's never too late. See, they agree, right? The universe is like, yes, that's true, do that. Right? Yay! It's never too late to decide. It's super powerful, right? Never too late to decide that you want to change something or do something. There's people that I've run into in the last couple of years that are almost like it's the paradigm that they're living in is that I'm stuck, that I don't have a choice, or that just everybody's unhappy. And I'm thinking, not in my world. If people in my world are unhappy, they're usually doing something about it. If you are living here, you probably have choice. To do something about whatever it is. So it's that idea of not being, I started my business when I was like full time. I guess I was 38.
Well, we have a mutual friend who went from doing office work to now having his own landscaping business. Right. And just the transformation that's happened to him since making, and he still does all his artistic endeavors and all of that. Yeah. He was doing it before, but he's like a totally transformed person. And it was, I'm sure if when he was doing his office work, you'd said, oh, go dig some gardens, he would have been like, what?
Yeah, I know. What are you talking about?
But like, he's really just, you can tell when you speak to him, he's just at peace. Like that weird energy is like, not there anymore. As much there.
Right. And it might be quirky, like someone's energy. It might be like that.
We're all a little quirky, but it's, like he just seems more at peace.
Yeah, it's an ease of spirit. Right. And that was one of the, like when I came up with the top 5 list of qualities I want my work to have, ease of spirit was definitely on the list, where I just, at least, if I died tomorrow, at least I have no regrets. Yeah. I have good insurance, so my husband will be taken care of.
Yeah, my kids
people
will be
sad. It's all right. I hope they would be sad.
There's enough money that my kids can eat ice cream and eat their tears away.
Eat their feelings. Yeah. But I have zero regrets, and that's a great place to be, to say, at least I was on the right track. Yeah. If nothing else, at least I was on the right track. So if people don't feel like they're on the right track, just do one thing. Better is better.
One step.
One step at a time, one opening at a time, one book at a time. It's not too late. Life is long.
Totally.
So get started.
Awesome. That's a good note to end on. Life is long. Get started. I like it.